Wow, it said you're live already. We must be live. Hey, happy Friday. I know, what I wouldn't give to do a Thursday like I'm supposed to. It's not going to happen next week because next week we have a marvelous date night scheduled, and it's for an event that only happens on that night. So, huzzah. You hearing me? Oh, yes, it is. Okay, so you're already ahead of me. Not only is it Friday, it is Good Friday. And that is the best Friday that there ever was and that there probably ever will be again. So happy Good Friday to you if you celebrate that, and I hope you do. And if you've ever considered it and you haven't done it, there's lots of folks out here who would love to talk to you about it and help you understand a little bit about what we believe. Okay, that's not the show that I'm going to do tonight, though. I should do that. I should do a faith show. No, you know what? I have an addictive personality. If I start something like that, I go down the path. Next thing you know, it would be Father Rush. I like being Dad Rush, and that's good enough. Scott! Oh my gosh! All of the mods are here. Nothing but wrenches in the chat list. Hey, well, all right. It is Friday, and you have found your way to ADRAMADA. Another Dave Rush Ask Me Anything Digital Alchemy. Come for the shirt. You can't see my camera view. Yeah, you can see the shirt. Fun shirt today. I hope somebody gets that. And stay for the news and the project. And the project today, VLSM, Variable Length Subnet Masking. So this show is all about collecting and disseminating information about technology and its uses. And I'm not going to read all that nonsense. It is, if you're not watching this live, Friday, April 18th, 2025 at 7 p.m. Central Time. And that's the one thing that we don't seem to change very much. I don't think I've ever changed it. It's always been at 7 o'clock Central Time, whether or not we're on Standard Time or Daylight Saving Time, singular. It is not a party without Patricia Grace. Oh, wait, and she's here, so wonderful. You know what? I'll bet you Jason turns up. Beg your pardon, I'm humping and... yeah, let's do this. You know, there is a thing in presentation circles, a law, probably a written law, and I violated it tonight. Before I came on the air, I had a big old glass of chocolate milk. Never drink milk when you're going to speak, sing, whatever, because it does that. I'm so sorry. All right, let's do the newsy or the pre-show stuff, and then we'll go on to the rest of the world. It being April 18th, on this day, you'll probably remember the poem by Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. He was I don't know if he was a tall man or not. Something we should look up and find out if Longfellow was in fact a Longfellow. Anyways, he wrote the poem that we all know, The Midnight Ride of Paul Revere, because it began, "Listen, my children, and you shall hear of the midnight ride of Paul Revere," on the 18th of April in 75. So there we go, 1875. By the way, the poem is not historically accurate. Longfellow was not a journalist, he was a poet. And so he wrote something that was memorable and understandable, but he twisted around some of the historical facts. Nonetheless, it was on this date in 1775 that Paul Revere warned both Samuel Adams, yes, the big brewer name, and John Hancock that British troops are marching from Boston to Lexington. 8 years later, on the exact same date, 1783, George Washington issued general orders, he was still General George, announcing the end of hostilities with, I don't know if he was still General George, he may have been president. Anyways, end of hostilities with Britain in the American Revolutionary War. And all of the members of the military who were fighting the British were issued an extra ration of alcohol, rum, I think. that day to celebrate the end of said hostilities. And let's keep it on a war footing. Some years later, 1942, the Doolittle raid. James Doolittle leads the first air raid on mainland Japan, Tokyo, and other Japanese cities. Noteworthy, of course, but I'm here because of aviation, not because of war. And they launched a bunch of Mitchell bombers, B-25s, off of carriers to pull that raid off. There wasn't enough gas to get back. They purposely bombed and then crashed the aircraft. They flew to China and crashed them in China. They didn't crash them on purpose. They crashed them because they were out of fuel, and counted on the Chinese civilians and Chinese military to rescue them and find ways to get them back home. So that was a fascinating thing. 4 years later, this is the last of the on this date stuff. 1946, April 18th, Jackie Robinson debuts as second baseman for the Montreal Royals. So there you go. Who's here and what are y'all talking about? There's all kinds of busyness going on over in the chat behind my papers. Holloway, how many hours early did you turn up? 6-2, almost 2.5 hours early. And then half an hour early, and then Patricia Grace turns up 8 minutes later. The nerd herd. Great phrase. I won't steal it. It's too good to steal. That's a blessed Good Friday to all of us. Sound is good. I'm happy with that. I know it's a little tinny, but it's okay. I use this same rig now for doing my classes in Indiana. I do 6 classes a week. So Scott is helloing there. Can't wait to hear about your event last Sunday, Scott. Doing some LARPing. And I was over at Scott's house last weekend on Saturday. He's working on a really interesting project. And when he's ready to share, maybe he'll come on the show and talk about it. Wrenches unite. You know, when you say it out loud, you just can't not say wenches. I'm here. It just ain't a party. Yep. Joey's here. Joey's always available on a Friday night. Good to see you, my friend, as ever and always. Got that from school. Okay, he called a nerd when he signed my sec book. Okay. Very cool. Well, all right. We got a bit of a show, and we've got a little bit of news and all of that stuff, so let us do that. We've got a Discord home. If you're watching this and you haven't been here ever, we love our Discord site. It's a tech site, okay, and it's a non-tech site, and it's all kinds of tech. We're not about IT necessarily, though we certainly have IT channels. We have space channels and medicine channels, and if you have any interest at all in the technological arts, come on over. I put invitations at the beginning of the chat feed and contact information for me, and you can kind of sort of follow me on X. I don't do much on X. I mostly comment on other people, but every now and again I'll throw something. The last time we got together, which was not last week, but the week before, we completed our VLAN discussion. We talked about tagged VLANs. The week before or so, we had done untagged VLANs and tagged VLANs and how to configure tagged VLANs in a Windows system. And then last time we got together, we showed how to do tagged VLANs in Linux system using the VLAN package. Sudo apt install VLAN or sudo yum install VLAN. And from there, it's just a little configuration file. And we introduced it, but it can go so deep down the well. It's a lot of fun. Today, we're going to talk about variable length subnet masks, VLSMs. I did this presentation with you in a 4-part series in February. And then I took that and I edited the heck out of it and turned it into my first Udemy course. And it's okay. Don't sign up. I've got freebie coupons that I will be handing out. But when I reviewed it the very last time and I looked it over to make sure I was covering the objectives, I realized that I missed an important objective that's in both Cisco CCNA, CCST, and in CompTIA Network Plus, and that was variable length subnet masking. So I kind of chewed on that. Should I just ignore that and say, yeah, you get one or two questions on it, or should I complete the whole hog? And that was my final decision. Yes, I'm going to complete the whole hog. So I wrote up this week and did some labs to test it, 3 more episodes for the course. And when I completed those, I said, well, I've got to do a VLSM presentation on the show, and I don't have that much time. I'm going to do this in 30 minutes, an hour and a half of material. So I edited the heck out of it. So fair warning, it's going to go fast. Second fair warning, if you have not yet gotten subnet masking and subnetting down a little bit, you're going to get a little lost in the mud here. That's fact of life. If you really want to understand what we're doing here today, go back and re-hit the second half of the 4 episodes, excuse me, in on the show in February, or hit me up and I'll get you an early freebie pass for Udemy. You can watch the course there, but it's not complete. I don't have the quiz questions up. I don't have the tests up. But all the episodes are there, all the slides and all the presentation, and I edited out all the stuff. So we're doing VLSMs today. I'll show you what they are, what they mean, what they do, why they're important, and way more, even in our little 30-minute presentation today, than you would ever need to know for those exams. Okay, not doing that, not doing that. All right, let's start. Oh, let's do one more thing here. Check, make sure you guys are all healthy, wealthy, and wise. Check, 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 check. Reading messages. Shenanigans. Yeah, I remember that. One cannot simply ignore VLSMs. You're exactly right. I felt bad when I realized I missed that. It's just, part of my OCD. Anybody else would have said, we don't need it. The course is complete as it is. And I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake for 14 days thinking about how much work it was going to be and how much research I'd do. Because I didn't really have a strong understanding of VLSMs before I started writing this. And then I got into it. VLSMs was 2 weeks of crying for me, and now it's exciting. Yeah, it's you know what? I mean, if you get CIDR down, we really don't have to add very much to it. I'm going to add, in my inimitable style, far too much information. But when you get to the end, it all distills down into make a couple quick decisions and use a VLSM calculator, and your world is set. All right, what's going on in the news? I guess that means we got to bring up slides. Okay. Where, how? Okay, there was some other news that was really mattered in the weekend, the last 3 days. And I didn't write it up when I wanted to, and I don't need it to be written up because what happened was I knew happened, and that was MITRE looked like they were going to pull their funding from the CVE program. There were 2 last-minute save the days. I suspected that there would be, and now looking at this potentially ever happening again, new systems are being put in place, new funding mechanisms, and possibly a whole new organizational approach. They may spin off and become a nonprofit. So the world waits. It's an expensive proposition to run the CVE program. And when this happened, the political infighting for pro and con CVE program. The con CVE program, the people who don't think the CVE program has value, they're usually pretty quiet. But when this happened, man, they came out of the woodwork. And end of the world, and thank goodness it's good. They never read it, they don't do it. It's back, it's safe, it'll be okay for a while now, but look for a major upheaval. But that isn't what this slide is about. This is slide 1. The Certificate Authority / Browser Forum, they are a standards body, has voted to significantly reduce the lifespan of certificates in a shorter and shorter phase-out plan over the next 4 years, where the final lifespan of any assigned SSL or TLS certificate will be 47 days. When you put a new SSL certificate into anything that uses that, it's going to be good for 47 days. Then you're going to have to re-up it. We re-up certificates all the time. It's mostly an automated process, but there are systems that aren't automated. And do I want to go ahead for this? No. I hadn't realized this, but I was messing about with my cell phone 2 days ago on a project, and I ran into its certificates. And it dawned on me as this process goes forward over the next 4 years, and they start making the life length of these certificates shorter and shorter and shorter, that's going to affect probably a lot of devices that we're not aware of. Anything, if you got an IoT device that does secure communications to its back end, to its cloud site, that's all done with SSL and TLS certificates. So this is going to have a pretty big impact on the whole magical, mystical world of encryption between devices. All right, that's as far as I want to go on that. I have lots more information. I like this one. Nice newsy. Let me put this up here. Broadcom. Okay, Broadcom bought VMware last year and made a pig's breakfast of it. And. Okay. Well, they're trying to curry favor with some of their users and or customers. They killed, shortly after that buyout, the free version of vSphere, which is a Type 1 bare metal hypervisor that went away. And it's got some interesting magic to it. It's limited, but it's going to be free, and it's good, and it's powerful, but all of its real power has been stripped out. So you only get one instance on a host. You can't do vMotion or clustering or a lot of that stuff. So it's just what they're calling, their words, just a nice standalone hypervisor for one host. One of the things that they left in it that really surprised me is the ability to create a virtual instance. So the way it was toward end of life before they effectively killed it as a free product is you could run it as a hypervisor, but you had to have created a virtual machine instance on some other machine with some other process. And then you install it and run it on the machine running the hypervisor. It's a good thing, it's a bad thing, I don't know. But there it is. I thought it was newsworthy. So let's do that. And move it along. Oh, I like this story. I do not have a good setup today. That's an artist's rendering of the Milky Way to dovetail with this story. There's a lot of gravity in the universe. And from everything that has been seen and detected there's more gravity going on than what we can see or detect. And so scientists have been searching for decades where all that additional gravity is coming from. And gravity comes from mass. Well, they think they found it. I hope this is settled science. You know how this goes. It may turn into unsettled science. Hydrogen makes up about 90% of the universe by atoms and about 73% of the universe by mass. And so the presumption was there's hydrogen out there. We just can't see it. And they can see hydrogen. And then they came up with a theory that said, wait a minute, what if it's not hydrogen? What if it's ionized hydrogen? Well, that's really hard to see. That's hard to see with detectors. It certainly can't be seen visibly. It's invisible. So they came up with a new technique, which is basically theorizing that there's a lot of hydrogen, ionized hydrogen, that lives in the vast spaces between galaxies. And they've always been looking for hydrogen much closer to galaxies and not succeeding than we thought. So now they've come up with this technique. It's a brilliant technique that you could have come up with. They said, you know what? There's things between us. Well, there's ionized hydrogen between Earth and other galaxies. And if there's a lot of it, it must be diffusing the light. It must be somehow changing the light. And so they've changed up their instruments and added some new instruments to watch light sources through this now detectable, relatively thin, and nevertheless massive when you take into account the whole universe. They think they found about 50% of the missing mass of the whole universe using this method. So interesting, fascinating. We'll see how long it holds up. Monday night, 11 p.m. Eastern Time in the U.S., the April Lyrids return. And 2 days earlier, I think the Aquariids come in. The Aquariids are not usually as exciting by any stretch as the Lyrids. This is the first good meteor storm of the year. It's not a great meteor storm. We have seen over history some really great activity coming out of the Lyrids, like 200 meteors per hour. This year, peak conditions. If you've got a nice dark sky and no clouds, they're forecasting about 18 per hour. But the cool thing about Lyrids is the meteors are slow, they're long, and there's a lot of fireballs relative to a lot of the other storms. So, Monday night, I'm sorry, it's Sunday night, it's April 20th. 11 p.m. Eastern. Favoring Europe, a few hours later, North America. But the peak is going to be at 11 Eastern. So Europe's going to get a better view of it. But you can hang out till, the wee hours of the morning sometime, from 11 p.m. till 3 a.m., 4 a.m. You may get some decent meteors. I'll be out there. Ubuntu. Plucky Penguin. 25.04. Canonical has released the next release of Ubuntu. It is called Plucky Puffin. And this being an odd year, 2025, this is not a long-term release. This is a pre-release for the next long-term release, which will be 26.04 in April of 26. This one's only going to be supported for 9 months, so it's basically a beta for whatever's coming next. I'm not going to read you all the new features. It does use the newest, latest, greatest kernel. That's kind of cool. It's got some generic ARM64 desktop ISOs. That's awesome. So you can run it on the Pi. You can run it on all the families of Pis out there, including Snapdragon-based ones. All right, I'm not going to get this to that. And that is that. News of the week. All right, what did I miss? Bormer, as well you should. Is it Boromir? I always thought it was Boromir. I never looked at that. I've certainly looked at the spelling of his name. I've read the trilogy multiple times, but I'm thinking Boromir. Oh, okay, you got it right in the next line. There we go. All right, light bulb turns on. Good journey, Joey Quetzal. Good. Oh yeah, it's great. As Scott says, when you work through something scary and complex, and suddenly I get it, or I'm starting to get it, and the rest of it falls into place really fast, and that turns into I get it. Kind of the same thing there. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Yes, definitely an Easter theme. And of course, we got Easter coming up this Sunday. Kids in town. He turned up. He wrote me yesterday. Hey, I'm coming to town tomorrow. I'm gonna. I think I'll leave tonight. He said last night. Well, we know that's not going to happen. My kid is of the current generation where schedules mean nothing. So late at the end of the night, he says, I'll see you in the morning or early afternoon. Okay, fine. Thumbs up. And then got a message this morning. Yeah, it's going to be in the afternoon. Okay. And then in the afternoon, I'm going straight to the girlfriend's. I'll turn up at the house when I need a bed to sleep in while I'm in town. Okay. Oh, did I do a slide on this? Yes, I did. 2 more newsy items. These are cool. So the University of California at San Diego, UCSD, hosted a cluster computing competition, and it was a single board cluster computing competition. Raspberry Pis and other SBCs. And we can look at this slide and read the details, but whole bunches of tests and sub-competitions there within. Here's the list of all the competitions and all of the winners of each of them. What a shock! UCSD #1 overall. We're going to host it because we got this thing down. But Kids Alma Mater, Texas Tech came in #2 overall and #1 in a couple of the individual competitions. So I thought that was fun. Okay, we are just about on the half hour, which is a good time. Like I said, I'm going to run through this pretty quick. Oh, I got 3 minutes. I should mention this. So we didn't get to talk to each other about spring break, and I just wanted to share mine. It was fun. So I thought I had 2 weeks of spring break because 2 of the 3 schools I teach for have 2-week spring breaks. Down here, you get a 1-week spring break, but they make up for it by finishing school a little earlier. 2 of those schools had a 2-week spring break, and when I was on the Indiana educational websites, it looked like the entire state had that. So, okay, cool. 2 weeks off for me. I have lots of fun stuff for me to do. And then Monday, the second week, I get a text saying, your class is looking for you. That class, the one school, only got a 1-week spring break. So I missed that class. I did a recorded session for them and got caught up. But that put a real crimp in my whole second week of planning where I was going to do nothing. But that meant I got to stay here and got to do some cool things here. So it is spring in Spring, Texas. The smoker came out, and we smoked ribs and leg quarters. And my smoker's got about 1 year of life left in it. So I am going to smoke my brains out this year and then replace it. The Sun Tea maker has been out in the yard. We're making Sun Tea. Now, I got to tell you this one. Kids in town last weekend. A couple months ago, I bought brakes all around for the car. New rotors, new pads, and I did the fronts solo. The kid was in town. I thought, the kid and I, we did that radiator job at his place 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, and that was fun. I just like working with the kid on cars. I hate working on cars. Gosh, I hate working on cars. But you're in town. Congratulations. We're going to do the rears. So, okay, I got all the pieces and parts. We got them all staged, got them laid out. We jack up the car, spin off the tire, and there's no rotor in there. This is a modern car. I mean, it's not the most modern ever. It's a 2015. But I haven't seen a car since 1985 that doesn't have rotors and pads all the way around. But no, this one's got rotors and pads on the front and drums and shoes on the rears. I was stunned the entire day, just meandering around in a haze. I went to auto parts store and said, what are my chances of finding drums and shoes here for this car? And he said, 0. Nobody carries drums and shoes anymore. I can order them for you. Tell me how much. And he told me, and I said, let me go do a little online looking myself, and I can pick it up for about 1/3 of the price. So I've ordered drums and shoes, and they're not here in time for me to do it with the kid this weekend. So I can't tell you how long it's been since I've done drums and shoes. And I covered that territory, so that takes care of that. Here we go then. Last messages, not a car guy. Yeah, that is the way. Man, I feel so bent over by mechanics these days. They don't even say please or thank you. Yeah, that's exactly why I did that, Patricia. Put that in my notes as soon as I mentioned that. So that's why I put the little unexplained note on the Discord server. 2 words, drums and shoes. And now you know why. Okay, well, let's get this project fired up, make it go as reasonably understandable in the time permitted, because I don't want to stretch this out into 2 sessions. It would be great in 2. It would be awesome in 3. But as I said, the rules for today's presentation. If you don't have a decent handle on CIDR subnetting, you're going to get lost in the weeds on this one. Watch it anyways. You'll hear the terms, and some of it will become familiar, and you get refreshed. But if you actually care about this, you want to learn it, you want to see my presentation on it, go back and maybe skip the first 2 presentations, which was classful addressing and how to convert back and forth from binary to decimal, but do the second 2. That's all CIDR addressing, practice and implementation and explanations, and that'll sort of refresh you, and it makes sense. Today's presentation will make sense, because basically VLSM is going to take CIDR subnetting to the next notch. And again, it's a specific objective in CCNA and network certs. It is not on those certification exams as deep as I get into. I want people to understand this. So we start with a slideshow. I have concerns here. I had to set this up a little bit differently than usual, and let's see if it worked. Hey, good golly, Miss Molly, it worked. I don't know if I mentioned this. Udemy, nothing wrong with Udemy. They're okay after you get through the humps and put together your first class. People sign up for your class all the time for about 10 minutes, and then they disenroll. And there's a couple reasons, and I explained what I thought was the main reason last time we did this, but it turns out that's only partially true. Sometimes they get in just to see if they can download episodes and re-release them on their own or generate their own network traffic or whatever. But turns out there's a much bigger audience. That's the people who just want to get in, find your contact information, and then reach out to you, and we can help you find more students. Just give us some money. And they reach out in every approachable media possible. I get hit on X, I get hit on regular email, I get hit on my Discord server, everywhere. If I've got contact information, they find it and they mark it at me. LinkedIn, I had to mute somebody on LinkedIn this morning. Okay, enough said on that. So what we're going to do here is I've cut down the presentations to about 1/3 of the slides that I'm going to use on the course. And we're going to go back with this slide to basic subnetting. Not default subnetting, not classful subnetting, but classless subnetting. So what I've done in this slide is I've created a little subnetted environment. Joey, whose course on Udemy did you use for that? while I continue to talk about this. So I don't have body counts on here, departments. All I've done is I just created some simple, quick, fictitious subnetted network. It's on a Class C network, 192.168.1.0, and I have decided to use a WAC26 subnet mask. So 255.255.255.192, and working left to right, I've created subnet 0, subnet 64, subnet 128, and subnet 192. What we're introducing here is the title on the top of the page. FLSM, Fixed Length Subnet Masks. This is what we've used for my entire presentation in February. A fixed length subnet mask, and FLSM, means every interface, every host on the network uses the same subnet mask. So up in the router, I got 4 interfaces. They each have unique IP addresses, and they all have the same subnet mask, 255.255.255.192, WAC26. And every host on that left-hand kind of blobby circular network, subnet, has to have the same subnet mask. Everybody in here's got a WAC26 subnet mask. And now the second one over from the router. Subnet 64. The interface on the router has a subnet mask of WAC26. Everybody attached to the switch and everything attached to the switch uses the same subnet mask, WAC26. Same for the third interface over on subnet 128. Same for the fourth interface and subnet on the fourth interface. That's what I'm trying to say. Everybody uses a WAC26 mask. And that's why it's fixed length. It's fixed. If I set it for one, I set it for everyone. Simple enough? Simple enough. All we've done here is add a term that we haven't used in the past and applied it to everything that we've learned in the past. So that's cool. So what can you do with that, Dave? Well, let's look at the benefits of using fixed length subnet masks. 1, they're simple. They're very simple to calculate. If you go through my little 4-part series, 2 hours of presentation, do the practice exercises that go with it, you can do CIDR fixed length subnet masks. They're very easy to figure out. They're simple to calculate. They're simple to implement. They require some planning, but not much. Basically, you got to figure out how many subnets you're going to need, what's a subnet mask that will achieve that many subnets, and then apply the leftover host bits to become host IP addresses. Once they're implemented, requires very little management to implement and to manage after implementation. And except for human error, if you do any decent amount of planning, and it doesn't take a lot, overlapping addresses, creating duplicate addresses, is a very easy thing to avoid. So, summary, fixed length subnet masks are easy to learn and understand. FLM is easy. But it's got some disadvantages too. And there's basically one of them. And that is wasted IP addresses. Let's go back to the previous slide for a moment. And let's say that this left-hand subnet has a lot of hosts on it. 100 hosts. Can I do 100 hosts on that with WAC26? 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 60. Okay, there's 50 hosts on that one. That's fine. That means I'm going to waste a dozen or so host IP addresses because they won't be used. What happens if I have 20 people on subnet 64? Well, I can have 62 host addresses. I'm only going to use 20 of them. I'm going to waste 42 host addresses. How about 15 on the next one? A lot of waste. How about 30 on the next one? A lot of waste. But this is the price that I had to pay because I said I need 4 subnets. And the only game in town that I know is the one that Dave taught me so far, CIDR subnetting. So here's my disadvantages. Potentially, many host addresses get wasted because they don't get used. So let's take a look at a fictitious company where we will apply fixed length subnetting, and then we'll find the problems with it, and then we will fix it with variable length subnet masking. So here's an organization that's got 5 departments in it. We've got the executive division. Down lower left, we've got sales, and a group that has close relationship with sales, support. Then there's our production staff, and there's our accounting people. Most important people in the company, except for the executives. At least that's what the executive think. So, all right. Now, let's say that I want to create a network that works for all of these people. Well, if I do that, I'm going to check my slides here and see if this is one of the ones I didn't do. Yeah. If I want to create 5 subnets, that's hard. Because I can make 4 very easily. I can just mask off 2 bits and make 4. But if I want to make more than 4, I have to mask off 3 bits. That gives me 2, 4, 8 subnets, and I only need 4. Or maybe it'll be, I only need 5, or maybe it'll be 4 by the time I get done here. So I'm going to have, best case, 3 unused subnets, and every one of those is going to have 30 stations available on them, 30 straight. So I'm going to lose 90 to 120 host addresses that will be unusable if I try to accommodate 5. So let me back that out a little bit. I'm going to say, tell you what, it's a lot easier and it's a lot more efficient just using regular CIDR subnetting. If I take this group that's very closely associated with one another, sales and support, and I combine them together into a single entity. So I'm going to make, on the next slide, a sales and support group. And you can see, looking at these breakdowns, up here on the top, one of our groups, the executives, needs 5 IP addresses. There's basically 4 executives and a printer in this one. Or maybe 3 execs and a printer. I'll show you why that matters. I need 70 IP addresses for the salespeople. They've got individual hosts, and they've got their portables, and they've got their printers, and they've got their servers. And I need 40 for the support staff, and I need 54 for the production staff, and I need another 23 for the accounting staff. So that's my fictitious company, their breakdowns, and their IP address requirements. So now, combine them together. Now I need 110 IP addresses to support everybody in sales and support. But I'm down to 4 groups, and I can work with that. There are subnet masks that will yield me more than 110 IP host addresses. So let's build a basic, straight out of class at the end of February, set of subnets. And I'm going to use the same example that I used last time with a small problem here. Yeah. 25. I got a typo here. I got to fix this slide. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. Yeah. Yeah, this slide is an almost total typo. But it's good to have found, so now I can fix it before I put it up on Udemy, huh? So I'm going to use fixed length subnet masking here, and minor screw up. It's going to impact one of my subnets. These should have been WAC 27s. They should have been WAC 25s, not WAC 26s. And that would solve all the problems here. So I'm going to say WAC 25 for this presentation just to make it work. It's fixed length, so everybody gets a WAC 25 here on each of the 4 interfaces in the router, and on every host in the sales and support group, and on every host in the production group, and on every host in the accounting group, and every host in the executives group. So if there was a WAC 25, there would be enough host addresses to serve 110 IP addresses, and one more, there's actually 111 in here because the interface that's in the router has to get an IP address on this subnet. So, okay, I use a WAC25 here. With a WAC25, I can support 126 host addresses. And if I did that, of the 110 or 111 that I need, I would waste about 16 of them. That's okay. It's the next one that gets to be a real problem. The WAC25 here, which supports 126 hosts, and I only need 54 host addresses plus one more for the router interface. I'm going to waste 72 IP addresses, host addresses. Next door, I only need 23, but I'm using fixed length. I use a WAC25 subnet mask that gives me the potential for 126 host addresses, but I only need 23 plus one, so I'm going to waste 103, 102, something like that. And then the execs, there they are living on their great big WAC25 subnet. I can support 126 host addresses on there, but I only need 5 or 6. So I got a lot of waste in there, 120 wasted. So this is where FLSM meets its biggest downfall. If everybody gets the same size subnet mask, if everybody gets the same size subnets, the potential for waste is very high on those subnets where users, aren't very populated, where hosts aren't very populated. There's not a lot of stuff here. Let me make a note on this thing, fix this slide. Change WAC26 to WAC25. All right, let's take care of that. Update script accordingly. So what's our solution? Our solution is today's topic, variable length subnet masks, or VLSMs. What we do with VLSMs is instead of applying the same subnet mask to everybody on all of the subnets, each subnet gets a subnet mask that's appropriate for the number of hosts that you're going to put on there. So this one might be a WAC25, this one might be a WAC26, this one might be a WAC27. I don't know. We'll figure out an example here. But that's what VLSMs do. They allow me to customize the size of my subnet and the amount of available host addresses left on them, which will maximize the usable IP host addresses and minimize the amount of waste. So let's build it up. We're going to start with one of our groups here, that big group. Sales and support needs 110 plus 1 host addresses. If I put them on a WAC25 subnet, that means I'm just going to mask the first bit of the 4th octet, leaving me 7 bits for host addresses. 2 to the 7th minus 2 is 126. So I could support 126 host addresses on this subnet. And we haven't picked a network address yet. That's going to be the last step. It's either going to be subnet 0, because I'm going to put a 0 in that single position to work with, or it's going to be subnet 128, because I'm going to put a 1 in that 128th position. But cool. So I don't have a lot of waste here. 126 minus 111 is 15 wasted hosts. There's a price to pay, so sometimes you got to waste hosts. Now for my next size group. I've got 54 IP addresses. What's a good subnet mask that gives me 54 addresses? Well, I did some calculating. I discovered that a WAC26 gives me 62 addresses. So that takes care of my 54 devices and people in the production department, plus 1 in the router. So I got a theoretical max of 62. I take away 55 from that, and I get 7. 7 wasted or future to be used IP addresses. So cool. I got 2 different subnet masks on the same router on the same primary network address. I got a WAC 25 over here. I got a WAC 26 over here. Next group, the accounting group. There's only 23 people. What is the best subnet mask that I can use that will give me closest to, without going under, 23, 24 for the router one, host addresses? Well, a WAC 27. That leaves me with 4 addresses. 27, 1, 2, 3, 5 bits left. 2 to the 5th minus 2 is 30. So, hey, I like this one. With 30 available addresses, I'll use up 24 of them. I got 6 more for growth. 3 different subnet masks, all on the same primary network address. I got a WAC 25. I got a WAC 26. I got a WAC 27. Now let's take care of the executives. They only need 5 and 1 more for the router interface. So I need a total of 6. Wow. WAC 29 gives me exactly 6 addresses. It leaves me 3 bits to do host IP addresses. 2 to the 3rd is 8, minus 2 is 6. So the executives can't grow. I can't get another executive in here and their computer. I can't add a printer to this. So we're going to use this to control the growth of our corporate network, of our corporate organization. So let's look at all of them together. And it's just all those same slides married together here. So, hey, pretty magic. This is the heart, this is the process of VLSM. It's really actually quite simple. How many hosts do I need? Let's make an appropriate subnet mask, not caring about the network addresses, only caring about the number of host addresses. We'll deal with the network addresses and subnetwork addresses later, but just make a mask that's big enough to provide the maximum efficiency in the number of assignable host addresses. Sweet. Going down my notes here because I did all that extemporaneously. We're almost done. I got 8 minutes to do this. There's 2 steps left. For each subnet, we have to assign a subnet address. And then for each assigned addressed subnet, we have to determine the range of hosts that are legal in there. You can do this on paper, in your head. And after a while, you can do it well enough to not make mistakes. But in the beginning, there's going to be mistakes. And the mistakes are going to be, you will create duplicated IP addresses. Something on this subnet address is going to have the same total IP address as something on this subnet address. And that can do nothing but badness from neither machine working, one or the other machine not working intermittently. The entire network can come down. I had that situation here a year and a half ago. A system glitched and created a duplicate address and shut down the whole network. Massive amount of troubleshooting on that. But we can do this. And I'm not going to teach you how to do it because there's a better way. I invite you to go visit a website. And I'll give you the URL for this website in just a moment. Or you can see it here on the left-hand side. This is a VLSM calculator. And if you go to your favorite search engine and search for VLSM calculator or VLSM network calculator, you will find it. So this one, I just picked this one at random. It's not one that I ever and always use. It was just the first one that came up the list, and I thought, well, let's give that a try. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I got 6 minutes. I'm going to demo this page to you and then explain it, because I know that slide is a little on the small side. 5 minutes left. That's cool. Oh, yeah, good. Okay, I'm going to open up a browser tab, and then I'm going to share the tab with you. Okay, good. Tab is open. Now we share, PuTTY, Windows capture. Settings. There we go. Okay. I know it's not stunningly clear, but I'll explain it as I go along. So what we've got here is some simple questions. They want to know, first of all, what network address will we be using? And I don't know if this is a default value in there or if it looked inside my system and said, Dave, you're running on a 192.168.1.0. I'm going to presume that that's a starting place. Okay. And then he says, what's your subnet mask? That's a Class C address. The default subnet mask is 24, so we filled him in with that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I did some of the pre-work here. And I know the biggest, or I guess the smallest subnet mask that I've determined that's going to work for me. And it's going to be a WAC 25. We had WAC 25, WAC 26, WAC 27, and WAC 29. And then he says, how many subnets do you want to make? Well, I was trying to accommodate 4 departments, each on their own subnet. So in the subnet box, I put in subnets and I click apply. And he says, okay, now I got more questions for you. First of all, for the sake of documentation and ease of understanding, I would like you to name them. And he's already named them, 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to go a little further. I'm going to say sales and production. Bear with me. Stay late with me for 3 minutes, because this is worth it. And this next one we'll call production. This one was sales and support. Production, and then we had the accountants group over here, accounting, and we had the execs over here. And number of hosts. So I'm going to make sure that I add in that one from the router. So I need 111 host addresses for sales and support. I need 55 for production. I need, excuse me, what was there, 24 for accounting, and 6 for the execs. And when you fill in all these values, and you may have more subnets for what you're doing, you may have a different class of address, you hit generate. And he says, okay, here's everything that you need to know. We've already filled in some of the values and gave them to them. So if we look at the sales and support group, you need 111 groups. We're going to mask it with WAC 25. Hey, exactly as we can figure it out. That gives me 126 hosts available. A WAC 25, they give it to us in both formats, is 255, 255, 255, 128. Okay? And this is the most valuable part of it to me. This is the range of usable IP addresses, and the calculator has gone through and made sure that this isn't going to conflict with my second, my third, or my fourth one. It also gives us the broadcast address for this. So, hey, down here, he's smart enough to take care of the execs the way it was supposed to be done. He said, you only need 6 addresses. I'm going to select a mask for you. Same one you came up with, Dave. WAC 29, that's good for 6 addresses. You won't have any unused hosts, no waste. And here's the range of IP addresses that you should assign on those 6 hosts. And here's the broadcast address for it. Is that cool? Because the answer is yes, that is freaking cool. All right, let me go back here and show you the one final thing to finish things out. And then we shall wind things up. Transition to you. Put you back up there. Oh, that was it. Okay, so I can do this in 2 hours and explain the details a little better. You can see the parts that I highlighted on this slide. That's kind of cool. But it's not a challenging process. I learned this in less than a day. I sat down one day and said, I got to write this course. I studied it. I practiced it. I had it down literally very quickly. If you get subnetting down, this is just a simple next step. So let's summarize the whole game. Variable length subnetting is a tool that lets me maximize the use of available host addresses without wasting them. It minimizes the waste. Nothing is free. It's complicated. It takes serious planning. It takes serious documentation. Man, if you don't document this well up front and as you're doing it and something goes wrong later and you have to figure it all out from a much bigger network than our simple experiment here, I can't imagine. So, all right, that is VLSM in a nutshell. I'll have the course completed within a week, and that'll be in there and practice questions on it. You don't have to know it to this depth. What you have to know about VLSM is, for the exams, is its benefits and its disadvantages. Why it's better than FLSM? Because it's more efficient. Why is it not as good? Because it's more complex. Can you do it in your head? Can you do it on paper? Yeah. Would you? I wouldn't. I don't know it that well. All right, let's read up the rest of the commentary and close down the show. Next week's show will be on Friday. Thursday, the missus and I are going out on date night. We're going to opening night of the NFL draft party here in Texansville. So something that I've never done before. It's got a nice bucket list. And if everything goes well, tomorrow I'm going to do something I've never done before. And that's go to a professional rugby game. Houston's got a rugby team, and I have a long story behind that. All right, reading questions here, reading answers. Oh, the drums and shoes. There we go. I like Udemy. I passed. Use Total Sim and Dion. Okay, both excellent choices. CBT Nuggets for CCNA. Oh, because your employer covered it? That's the way things ought to be. No kidding, Patricia Grace. The calculators that exist out there to make life so much easier and better. Oh, gosh, thanks. All right. Hey, thank you, Scott. Thank you for everybody for turning up and doing this silly nonsense once again. I will see you in a week. It was a pleasure, as always, having you here. I thank you for coming. There is no show without you. And until next week, then, I wish you a great rest of this week, all couple hours of it, the weekend. Take care of each other. Take serious steps to stay healthy. And as always, if at all possible, call or visit your parents. And of course, never forget, technology is great, but the greatest resource we have, you know it, are you and I. And with that, I bid you good night. I will see you on ADRAMADA next Friday and on the other platforms that I'm on. Until then, remember, how you do anything is how you do everything. Eek, op, ork, ah, ah.